Hi, everybody. Jonathan Broadbent here, unwoke.academy. Merry Christmas 2023. I consider an organization called Second Vote to be a 12-year Christmas present to all of us, we the people. By the way, if you don't celebrate Christmas, you're more than welcome as well. This is not exclusively for Christians. This is really just a we the people sort of conversation. But I want to get into briefly a discussion about Second Vote, what it is, why it was formed, and the plans for it for the future. If you've been following along with UnWoke, you know that UnWoke was formed in order to fight back against the woke left tentacles that have spread their way into the world of finance, credit lending, banking, insurance, corporate lending, all of the pretty much everything in the world of finance. If it has to do with money and currency and business and logistics and supply chain and kind of anything and everything, the woke left have spread their tentacles. Well, you may not know it, but about 12 years ago, an organization called Second Vote started under the leadership and guidance of a gentleman by the name of Dr. David Black. Dr. Black has amassed a terrific crew that has put together an impeccable database of information. And I want to get into that a little bit and then talk about the future plans for this. The first thing to know about Second Vote is about a year and a half ago, I started to develop a friendship with them because there's just natural simpatico. I've been talking a lot about the issues and problems and kind of putting daylight on the tentacles, as I like to call them, of the globalist far left, whatever you want to call them. There are lots of more colorful names that we can apply, but I'm just going to call them global communists. The push toward global communism has a lot to do with taking control of money, monetary systems, banks, banking, finance as a whole, etc. That is ultimately a key component of the objective. So starting about 12 years ago, this organization, and you should be able to see my screen here, I'm going to share some things with you. They started tracking the corporate behaviors of companies based on what I call the 6 pillars of freedom. And those are civil safe society, life, education, Second Amendment, environment, and basic freedoms. And so here's what that looks like. Now, the first thing to know is when you go to Second Vote right now, if you haven't been to the website, please do. You can go there up until December 31st, 2023. Starting next year, there are going to be some major changes to this. That's a big part of what I've been working on exhaustively for months, trying to create a new home for this, because it was kind of a shocker, but we learned in August that Dr. David Black was planning on closing Second Vote. And true to form and me recognizing the tremendous value that this brings to society, I encouraged Dr. Black early on in initial conversations before it was public and before he really made some key decisions. I was emphasizing and encouraging Dr. Black not to let this die. It really needs to be continued forward because the importance of this I cannot possibly overstate. I'm just going to sort of give the Cliff's Notes version. My understanding is that Dr. Black had many conversations with a great number of interested organizations that value what Second Vote represents, that have ultimately got to the point where he has come to the conclusion, and I agree with him, there really isn't another organization out there, or probably arguably individual like me, who's better suited to pick up the reins and run with it. It was not one of my intentions for 2023 and beyond, but it's come to pass that with a number of different conversations at each step through mid 2023 forward, I was encouraging anybody, it could be anybody, and kept telling Dr. Black, wherever it ends up, I will throw whatever weight I can and have behind that new organization to run Second Vote. Well, lo and behold, we stayed in touch, and ultimately that has fallen to me and my leadership. So it is what it is. It's a lot of work, but here's why it's fundamentally important. When we talk about DIS the left, and I say that a lot, which stands for know where you donate, invest, and spend. DIS the globalist left. Donate, invest, and spend. Think of that and remember that moniker to DIS the left. Because if you are giving your money, your hard earned money, to companies and causes that do not appreciate what we hold dear in the West, in Judeo Christian value system, which are the basic tenets of our freedoms, our liberties, and those values that we hold dear. Those, I guess I'm going to call them biblical principles. There are plenty of companies out there that don't value those. And if you're giving them your money, then as we're seeing, just like I'm sorry to use it as an example, but I'm going to anyway because it's an extreme example. There were a lot of people that got caught up in the notion of BLM, which stands for Black Lives Matter. Conceptually, I think pretty much everybody, with scant few exceptions, everybody recognizes that Black Lives Matter. But the idea of it was so warped and twisted and manipulated that people at the top took advantage, soaked up money, and then used that money in nefarious political ways to push a Marxist communist agenda. There are, I'm sorry to tell you, but there are corporations and entities that are very willing to do the same thing. So they're taking your dollars when you go in and buy stuff, or they start a nonprofit. And when you donate to the nonprofit, they're using that money against American values and Western civilization. And the same thing with investments. So as I talk a lot about investments and where it makes sense for us to invest and where it doesn't, where it makes sense for us to pull our funding, by drilling down a little bit and taking a look at things like the mutual funds in our 401k, or the sub accounts in our 403b, or where IRA investment dollars are going, it makes a lot of sense also for us to think about where we're spending our money. So as promised here, you can see my screen. I'm at secondvote.com. As I said, this is going to be up through December 31st of this year, 2023, and then we'll be moving elsewhere. I'm working really hard with a great group of people who have designed technology to be uncancelable. They are the answer to the far left woke technology firms that are perfectly willing to censor, mute, silence, and banish those people who counter the narrative. And we can't afford to have that. Second Vote is far too important. So the first thing you're going to find when you go there, that is, of course, the number 2ndvote.com. The concept behind it is your first vote is at the ballot box. Your second vote is with your wallet. When you go to secondvote.com, there's a very nice farewell letter from Dr. David Black. He is just a hat tip to Dr. Black. He has put a lot of years and time and energy and money into creating this incredible tool. So here's what we've got. This is what it looks like. As I said, we've got the 6 pillars of freedom: civil, safe society, life, education, Second Amendment, environment, and basic freedoms. And for any company that we might take a look at, and tens of thousands of them so far have been measured, and there's a maintained database that we're going to need to pick up and continue to work on. But it basically looks like this: a 5 is a perfect score, 3 is neutral, and a 1 is the lowest possible score. And they're color coded as well. And you can see where companies are failing. And so we've got these cool little graphics, and you can see on here for things like Second Amendment and education and religious freedom, basic freedoms, etc., where companies are failing. And you can even drill down. I'm just picking Colgate Palmolive because it happened to come up on my screen just at random. And you can see here citations and the issues that have been found. This has to do, by the way, with corporate actions. These are the corporate actions taken by Colgate Palmolive. So we want to see, as they accumulate wealth at the corporate level, how they spend that money. Are they spending the money on damaging, harmful things to society, or are they spending money to encourage good in society and support and defend our freedoms in the West? Clearly, this is one that's not doing very well. Colgate Palmolive, in my book, is not somewhere where I choose to spend any of my money. And remember, dis the left, that goes for the spent dollar. It means not spending money to buy Colgate Palmolive products, but also most, or I don't know if I can say most, but many of the companies that are tracked in Second Vote are publicly traded companies, which means it has a ticker symbol. You'll see that here. The ticker symbol for Colgate Palmolive is CL, as in Charlie Larry. So if CL exists in your portfolio, and remember, let's flash back to the other sessions we've had where I've talked about how to drill down a little bit and take a look at what's in your 401k or your kid's 529 plan or your 403b account or 401k, IRA, etc. It makes a lot of sense for us to take a look at how that money is being managed and look for things like Colgate Palmolive. Because if you're like me and you look this company up and decide you're going to find an alternative to that and not spend your money there, don't then allow your money to be invested surreptitiously in this company. And it might be the same thing with places like Target or Anheuser-Busch, which we've talked about. That's the parent company of Bud Light. These companies out there that people like to talk about boycotting. By the way, I don't suggest use of the term boycott. What I like to say instead is vote your values. Vote your values really, I think, leads to a longer term position on issues. Boycott sounds kind of temporary, and I think it sends the message to places that are doing wrong or harmful or destructive things that all they have to do is just take a little bit of a loss and wait, bide their time, and then people will come back to them. And I don't agree with that. I think that these companies need to be they need to be on a short list of companies where we just simply choose not to spend our money because the values aren't aligned. It's not any one thing. It's oftentimes an ongoing, pervasive, I won't even call it ignorance, but a pervasive stance relative to our basic freedoms that make us not want to spend our money there, or we shouldn't want to spend our money there. But perhaps more importantly, where could we be spending our money that's better? So when we take a look at companies like Colgate Palmolive, or I want to show you the search tool feature here, because the plan is, of course, to continue this. Imagine you're out shopping and you're getting a little bit tired and you want to go and buy a cup of coffee. Well, everybody knows the name Starbucks, so I just picked on them briefly for a moment here and typed in Starbucks. But you can see competitors out there, and we're not doing very good. Starbucks, actually, surprisingly, is the best of the four that show up most immediately. Seattle's Best Coffee. I've heard of it, but don't know much about it. That one scores even lower. Let's look at all this red. They are not doing well. Same thing with Tazo Tea and Teavana, low scoring. So let's take a look at, we'll continue with Starbucks. So Starbucks, you can see the issues where they're failing the screens. By the way, if you saw unwokeinvesting.com, the original website, I had a scrolling ticker symbol. I called it kind of a wall of shame that showed a variety of different companies that had failed our screens. So that was a scrolling tickers of companies to avoid, not just investment, but any kind of dollar, spent dollar, donated dollar, or invested dollar. But so you can go into this example is Starbucks. You can go into where they're failing and get citation. Here's the cool thing, it goes further and suggests that you may want to take action. You can find Starbucks on social media platforms. You can email, you can send a message. Hey, I really don't appreciate the stance that you're taking relative to this issue or that issue. If you are, for instance, wow, there's a lot of citations here. Somewhere in here, yeah, Second Amendment. So there are a lot of people that I happen to know who are really strong advocates of Second Amendment rights and how that protects we the people, the individuals, the families, communities, etc. This is a company that is failing on Second Amendment, so you might want to make note of that and communicate your frustrations to the company. Of course, always do it nicely, courteously, be kind, but you can do that assertively also. And you can take these kinds of things into your local Starbucks, or if it comes up with friends, or create a social media post to draw more awareness. These are the kinds of things that we the people with our dollars, we're talking about trillions of dollars. We talk regularly about how much wealth is controlled by these big groups, these big globalist managers. um, but when you think about the amount of money that's actually controlled by us, we the people, we dwarf those big BlackRock, Vanguard types of firms. We have so much more money than them. When we combine and communicate, it's kind of ridiculous. So they can try all they want. Not only that, but also that money that they supposedly move around and have and everything, that's not actually their money, it's ours. So we can do several different things. We can be withdrawing our money from their control, get it out of the clutches of the far left wokeadoodles. But also, when we're going out and making decisions with how we spend, it's fundamentally important. So you create some awareness, create social media posts, and communicate, talk to people. Here's an example of one. I got involved in some communications with people who were in Canada fighting back mid-COVID against some horrible draconian lockdowns and shutdowns and jab mandates and all sorts of things. And I learned that a company that I liked a lot called Costco. We've done a lot of shopping through the years at Costco. I learned that at least one location of Costco in Canada was horribly mistreating their guests who weren't able to show that they had all the latest jabs. That doesn't sit well with me. And I truly believe, and I hope that you will adopt this as well, or hold on to it, or that you have it already, this concept that we are our brothers and sisters keeper. So it doesn't sit well with me that a company where I was spending money was mistreating people. So I went in and spoke with my local manager. I also filled out a card and asked questions about it. The answer that I got was entirely unsatisfactory. I hearken back to the comments that we hear often around the rise of the Nazi Party in Nazi Germany in the 1930s, and that whole concept of all evil needs in order to be able to spread is for good people to do nothing. I think that's if that's not the expression, it's close to it. But the idea that has come out of the rise of Nazism, the socialist party's rise in Germany in the 1930s, was that a lot of people saw what was happening that was bad, but they just saw it happening to other people. They were like, well, that's somebody else. That's just the Jews, or that's just the gypsies, or that's just this group, or it's that group, or whatever. That is tremendously harmful to society. And I don't accept it. I don't buy it. I don't care what category somebody wants to put a group of people into, jabbed or unjabbed or whatever. I don't agree with abuse of people. in any sort of lump or category, and in the general as well. So that's an example of me taking a step. Well, when a lot of people do that, we affect change. We tell people and companies, managers, owners, boards, chairmen, etc. We tell them that their behaviors are unacceptable. That's the whole concept behind Second Vote. So the plan for this gets awesome. I've picked a couple places here, but imagine you're out on any given day and you're doing some shopping. You buy some tennis shoes for your kids, or and a cup of coffee, and you stop by a lumber store. Here, let's type in Lowe's. Um, Not to pick on any particular hardware store, but that's just one of the big ones. To get Lowe's, there's Home Depot. You can find them in here. The Home Depot actually doing a little bit better than Lowe's, which sort of surprises me a little bit. But the plan is twofold, and we're having a lot of conversation around this. What we want to do is help people to know the alternatives to these, and I want to build an app. I want to build an app on people's phones so at their choice, they can turn on GPS, type in the type of thing that they're looking for, like a hardware store, a coffee store, or a sporting goods store, you name it, and have people make informed decisions about where they're going to spend their money. That's the vision for this. It's not going to be easy. It's not a light lift, but when this exists, this thing is going to be extraordinary. Not to belittle what's here, because it's phenomenal, the amount of work, the 12 years that have gone into getting Second Vote to where it is. Tip of the hat to the creators. The vision from here is it's what we make it. It's tremendous, and I'm super, super excited about it. And I consider this to be kind of a Christmas present to us, we the people. Merry Christmas. Stay tuned for more on what comes of all of the data and information from Second Vote. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for listening. I'm Jonathan Broadbent, your host of Second Vote, your host of unwoke.academy. Stay tuned for the next exciting episode.